3 days before Christmas, my girlfriend, Lee, abandoned me for a man who fabricated a story about his ex-baby keeping him captive. She justified it by claiming he was a helpless victim in need of her aid. She insisted I wouldn't comprehend. 8 months later, she called me at midnight, tearfully confessing that every word he had told her was false. Now she requests to rekindle our relationship. I am Brendan, and this is the account of how a deceiver's feigned victim act wrecked my family, leaving me uncertain whether the woman I cherished deserves another chance. Allow me to transport you back to the origins. I encountered Lee 6 years ago at a gathering for single parents. I was managing 2 children from a past relationship, Milo and Keegan, and juggling the demanding reality of raising them largely alone since their mother had abandoned us when they were toddlers. Lee didn't have any kids of her own, but her affinity with children drew me in instantly. She participated in the event, managing craft stations and conversing with children as if they were genuine individuals, not merely miniature beings to control. We began dating a couple of months afterwards, and within a year she had relocated. My sons took a liking to her. She assisted with homework, attended soccer matches, learned their preferred dishes, and prepared them for special events. Although she wasn't biologically their mother, she assumed that role with an unwavering dedication that filled my heart in ways I hadn't known were attainable. Before we delve into today's tale, consider this. Have you ever encountered someone who habitually appears as the victim? Their ex was mad, their manager was unjust, everyone in their life wronged them, and yet nothing seemed to be their fault. Psychologists refer to this pattern as the Davos response: deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Studies indicate that 72% of individuals who inflict harm employ this specific manipulation strategy when confronted. The intention is to cast doubt on the true victim and present them as the instigator of harm. Today's narrative serves as a case study. We discussed having a child together. It was something we both desired, a child who would be ours from the get-go. We explored possibilities, discussed timings, even chose names during late-night chats. However, my father fell ill, and 3 months later he passed away. The grief overwhelmed me like a freight train. I struggled to function, let alone entertain thoughts of bringing new life into the world. Then the pandemic struck, confining us all indoors, struggling with homeschooling 2 children while juggling remote work, processing loss without our usual support systems. The baby talks were postponed. Life was simply too tumultuous, too much burden on everyone. I thought we were coping, stressed indeed, disconnected at times, but still standing strong fundamentally. That foundation was deteriorating unbeknownst to me. The festive season that year commenced as customary. We adorned the tree with our children, maintained our traditional practices amidst peculiar conditions. However, I observed Lee seemed preoccupied. Her phone use escalated significantly, taking calls outside frequently, returning home late from errands that ordinarily wouldn't take long. I inquired about this on a few occasions, and she always provided an explanation: work stress, a friend experiencing problems, nothing to fret over. Then, 3 days before Christmas, she pulled me aside after the kids were asleep and disclosed her intention to depart. I can still recall the manner in which Christmas lights danced across her face as she spoke. She revealed she had encountered someone, a man named Travis, who was grappling with a challenging period. His ex-girlfriend allegedly trapped him with a pregnancy, and he was finding it hard to deal with the situation. Lee felt compelled to assist him, to stand by him during this trying phase. I struggled to comprehend as I listened. My partner of 5 years, the one who assisted in raising my children, was departing me to back a stranger she had seemingly been growing closer to for months. I sought clarification on the details. How did they encounter each other? For how long had this transpired? Was it romantic or merely platonic? Lee's responses were evasive, argumentative. She claimed I couldn't comprehend, that Travis required her in a manner I no longer did, that we had drifted apart and she hadn't known how to inform me. That evening, she packed a bag and departed. I found myself having to clarify to my kids on Christmas Eve why Lee was absent, why the presents she had purchased remained under the tree, but she wouldn't be joining us to watch them unwrap their gifts. I told them she needed to assist a friend experiencing difficulties, that occasionally adults must make tough decisions. They were distraught and mournful, and I embraced them during their tears, yet my own heart was fragmenting into unrecognizable fragments. The subsequent months were amongst the most somber of my existence. I carried on with my duties at work and as a parent, but inside I felt void. My companions and relatives provided solace, but I could sense their growing weariness of the repeated discussions. How many times can one analyze the same act of deception before everyone, even oneself, just wishes to progress? I endeavored to maintain straightforward interactions with Lee for the children's welfare. We needed to establish some kind of agreement, despite her not being their biological mother. She had been a part of their lives for years, and abruptly severing ties seemed heartless to them, regardless of my personal feelings. Thus, we exchanged messages regarding schedules. At times, she would take custody during weekends, call on school nights via video chat. It was unpleasant and painful, but we managed to carry on. Via these encounters, I picked up more details about Travis and the predicament Lee stumbled upon. Travis, 26 years old and nearly 8 years younger than Lee, held a part-time position as a personal trainer and resided in a compact apartment that now had Lee contributing to its expenses. His former girlfriend had recently given birth, supposedly with the intention of trapping him into staying. Travis presented himself as a victim of a manipulative woman who had wrecked his life. Lee wholeheartedly believed this tale, viewing herself as his savior, the one who comprehended him when no one else could. However, that victim persona started unraveling almost straight away. A common acquaintance disclosed to me that Travis spun varying accounts of his story depending on his audience. To certain individuals, he asserted they had always practiced safe sex, and the pregnancy was implausible. To others, he acknowledged their carelessness, but maintained she had guaranteed she was on birth control. The facts varied depending on whom they were shared with, and here lies the intriguing point. Travis refused to undergo a paternity test. His ex-girlfriend had been persistently requesting one to establish legal child support, but Travis consistently evaded this matter. He informed Lee that he wasn't willing to grant his ex satisfaction with his involvement as the reason for his avoidance. However, this explanation didn't seem credible when scrutinized. During one of our conversations, I tentatively mentioned this issue to Lee, prompting her to become defensive. She asserted that rumors were circulating due to jealousy over Travis' past struggles and the subsequent gossip. However, as weeks passed, even Lee couldn't dismiss the inconsistencies. Travis' ex wasn't the villain he had portrayed. She was a typical woman endeavoring to care for her child, not harassing him or asking anything unreasonable. Travis insisted Lee end all contact with me and sever ties completely, threatening her access to our children. He accused me of being toxic and trying to re-enter her life manipulatively. Despite her attempts to explain that she needed to fulfill obligations towards our sons, Travis was unmoved, demanding full control and viewing anyone from Lee's past as a threat. As the days passed, I observed Lee growing increasingly isolated, skipping visits with my children without explanation and ignoring messages for extended periods. Her friends expressed concern as her responses became few and far between, seeming drained and burdened by an unshakable weight. They mentioned she ceased responding to their calls as well, claiming Travis had convinced her everyone was hostile towards them, asserting their relationship was unique and beyond comprehension by others, a typical manipulation strategy, which Lee failed to perceive. The child was born in April, a boy named Crew by Travis' ex. Despite his previous declarations about avoiding parental responsibility, Lee found herself acting as a stepmother for this child during the weekends when Travis had custody. My children encountered Crew on a few occasions during their visits with Lee. Milo and Keegan deemed him cute, eager to hold him and offer toys. For a short while, it appeared that this unusual arrangement might function. Although we were no longer together, there was still the possibility of maintaining a connection through our children, the prospect of retaining some semblance of family, albeit vastly different from what we had envisioned. However, Travis found even that unacceptable engineering problems each time my children were scheduled to visit. Despite urgent matters demanding Lee's focus, there were claims that Crew was ill and needed to avoid contact with other children. Subtly hostile comments were made about Lee spreading herself too thin, insinuating she should prioritize more effectively. The manipulation intensified as Travis threatened the relationship's termination over increasingly unreasonable demands if Lee didn't comply. He closely monitored her phone, scrutinized every text and call alleged infidelity with me. I watched helplessly as Lee grew progressively restricted. She missed visits with my children without reason, ignored messages for extended periods. Our interactions revealed a woman drained, burdened by an unshakable weight. The tipping point occurred approximately 8 months after Crew's birth when I received a distressed call from Lee late at night. Her sobs impeded clear understanding, but the message was clear. She was suffering. She confirmed that she had unveiled Travis's reality, the web of deception and manipulation. The baby trap narrative was entirely false. In a heated dispute, Travis himself confessed to it, casually dismissing her as if it mattered little. He hadn't been tricked. Instead, he was involved with several women, abandoning his ex when she became pregnant. She had not deceived him in any way. His refusal to accept responsibility for his actions was merely a strategy to evade blame. He fabricated the victim narrative to elicit sympathy, manipulating women such as Lee into providing for him. Moreover, there was more. Travis harbored doubts about Crew being his biological son from the beginning due to timing inconsistencies. This was the real reason he consistently evaded the paternity test. He desired ignorance of the truth because either outcome would inconvenience him. If Crew were indeed his, he'd be compelled to pay child support. If Crew were not, he would lose the sympathy story he had been exploiting. Lee had given up everything for a man who lived in deceit. She requested a conversation. I agreed, despite an inner voice urging me to refuse to let her grapple alone with the predicament she created. The following day, we met at a coffee shop. She appeared wretched, as if she hadn't slept for weeks. She expressed remorse for everything, for departing, for her departure method, for choosing Travis over our family, for the distress she inflicted. She admitted she was aware of the possibility that I might never forgive her, but wished for me to comprehend that she now recognized her error. I found myself at a loss for words. Frustration, pain, and something ominously like optimism fought for room within my heart. She revealed her desire to try again, to return, to restore our family, to set things right. She had severed all ties with Travis, changed her number, barred him from everything. That chapter was behind her, and she wished to reconstruct our relationship. Portion of me longed for an instant affirmative response, yearning to return to the familiarity of our past, to restore my children's missing parent, to alleviate my solitude. Yet another part of me recalled standing before the Christmas tree, recollecting the need to clarify to my offspring why their cherished figure wasn't returning home. I told her I required time for contemplation. She acknowledged understanding. That was 3 months back. We seemed to have entered a period of reconciliation. Proceeding cautiously, rebuilding faith, evaluating whether what we possessed can genuinely be revived or if irreparable harm has occurred. This journey hasn't been effortless. Travis didn't handle Lee's departure amicably. He resorted to appearing at locations he knew she would frequent, using friends as spies and informants. He sent messages from false identities, left notes on her vehicle, attempting every tactic he could devise to regain access. As a result, we've had to exercise caution about where we venture and what we disclose publicly. 24/7 vigilance is tiresome, further straining an already unstable situation. Moreover, there are unexpected encounters that catch me off guard. We inhabit a moderately sized urban area, not so small that everyone knows each other, nor so vast one can hide. People knowledgeable about Lee and Travis' relationship scrutinize us when we're seen together, posing queries regarding Travis, the baby, and their past. Lee manages these inquiries gracefully by offering vague responses concerning their breakup. However, I find myself standing there feeling uneasy and implicated, as if I'm unwillingly part of a narrative to which I didn't consent. The most challenging aspect is the uncertainty. Every day I ponder whether Lee might alter her decision, giving in to the pull of that other life, deeming the hassle and complexity not worth reconstructing with me. Additionally, I grapple with my personal feelings about what transpired. Was I naive for granting her another opportunity? Am I allowing my longing for my family's presence to skew my perception of what is truly beneficial? My friends and relatives offer differing viewpoints on the matter, which don't always align with my decisions. Some advocate for permanently shutting that door, asserting that Lee's actions were inexcusable, and accepting her back could encourage further misbehavior without significant consequences. They express concerns about future heartache. Others believe in reconciliation when both parties are sincerely dedicated, contending that relationships can endure betrayal if there is genuine accountability and a concerted effort to change. They recognize Lee's attempts at redemption and hope for forgiveness. My viewpoint fluctuates frequently, even hourly, between these contrasting views. However, I consistently find myself drawn back to the fact that I once loved her deeply, still harbor those feelings despite the pain, mistrust, and fear that now taint them. The issue isn't whether love was present, but rather if it could construct something enduring when the groundwork had been so significantly damaged. In the end, Travis's deceitfulness came to light. The truth has a knack for emerging, regardless of how meticulously one attempts to conceal it. He managed to infiltrate my girlfriend's life, dismantle the family we had created, and ultimately lost everything he was striving to maintain. His ex-partner finally obtained a paternity test through legal channels. Surprisingly, Crew was indeed his son. Now he is obligated to pay child support, which he had been evading for over a year. Additionally, his image as a victim has circulated throughout our social circles. Women now caution each other about him. He has transformed into exactly what he always accused his ex of being, someone accountable for their own actions. I don't derive pleasure from that situation. Instead, I feel tiredness, a tired acknowledgement that so much suffering could have been spared if honesty had been the foundation rather than deceit. The holidays are approaching once more, marking a year since that fateful night when everything shifted. We intend to celebrate them together, Lee and I along with our children, striving to create fresh memories that can coexist with the painful ones, not replacing them but building something distinct upon them. When my kids inquire whether Lee will stay this time, I respond that I hope she will. I cannot assure them of an eternal presence because I've learned that eternity is beyond my control. Yet I can guarantee them that we are all trying, that the grown-ups in their lives are making their best efforts, even when their best is flawed and uncertain. That should suffice for now. I am no longer the person I was prior to these events. The former me, the one who trusted freely and held faith in the permanence of love, has disappeared somewhere along the way. Perhaps the person evolving is more self-aware, assertive, and demanding respect. Or perhaps this is just my way of rationalizing, as admitting uncertainty seems less appealing. I've started consulting a therapist who focuses on relationship trauma and trust issues. She's been instrumental in helping me realize that reconciliation isn't a solitary act, but an ongoing process that necessitates frequent self-evaluation to ensure my needs are being addressed. Moreover, she's helped me acknowledge that my apprehension about Lee leaving again is an issue I must address irrespective of her actions. If unaddressed, such anxiety can taint even sound relationships. I need to learn to focus on what we're building currently instead of constantly preparing for its potential collapse. It's all a process of growth and learning. Essentially, I wish others to comprehend that these situations are not straightforward. The individual who inflicts pain on you may also be the one you cherish deeply. Deciding to stay or leave isn't always straightforward. At times, you select a path that seems incorrect to others because it resonates with you, and you have faith that your intuition is guiding you towards something positive. I can't say for certain whether Lee and I will endure. I can't predict if the wounds can truly heal or if we're simply prolonging an imminent conclusion. What I am sure of is that, at this moment today, I'm opting to persevere. I'm opting to trust that individuals can transform, that errors need not define us perpetually, and that the bond we forge is worth battling for, even when battle is challenging. To those experiencing something comparable, please understand you're not on your own. These intricate, convoluted scenarios are more prevalent than anyone admits. We merely don't discuss them because they contradict simple stories of heroes and villains, tidy endings, and flawless resolutions. Real life is messier than that. True recovery often takes more time than we desire, but it can happen. I must believe that, or else why would any of us be here? Thank you for hearing my tale. Thank you for offering solace to it. If you find yourself entangled in a complex predicament, I pray you discover the wisdom and fortitude necessary to determine what's best for you. At times, this may involve departure, at others, perseverance, and occasionally, enduring the unknown until the path forward becomes discernible. No matter where you stand in that journey, know that I observe you and encourage you. Now it is your turn to speak. Should Brendan have welcomed Lee back, or was this a foreseeable blunder? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely intrigued by your perspective. If my story held your attention until the conclusion, do me the favor of clicking like. It requires only a moment and aids others in discovering these videos. And if you haven't subscribed yet, why wait? Become part of the community. I'll find you in the ensuing narrative.